I never could have imagined that blood relatives could tear my heart to shreds like this. My name is Eloin Pugh. I'm 29 years old, and I work as a marketing specialist. I'm currently living in Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm 6 months pregnant with my first child. My husband, Yago, and I had already planned a small, intimate wedding by the shores of Mendota Lake, a wedding that embodied all our hopes for the future. But then, under relentless pressure from my parents, everything we'd dreamed of came crashing down. For months, they've treated me like a servant, forcing me to go to their house every single week to do laundry, cook meals, clean the house, and run errands, completely disregarding the fact that I was pregnant, utterly exhausted, and unable to straighten my back. They even ignored the repeated warnings from my doctor to take it easy and rest. What's been especially suffocating is that they constantly compare me unfavorably to my older sister, bragging about how she is the perfect family and is the epitome of a devoted homemaker, while in their eyes, I'm nothing but a lazy, good-for-nothing loser. I gritted my teeth and endured all the injustice, just hoping that on the most important day of my life, the wedding, they'd somehow put aside their prejudices and stand by my side. Finally, the wedding day arrived. Dressed in my wedding gown, my hand resting gently on my growing baby bump, my heart pounded like a drum as I waited for my parents to walk through the door. But what I received instead was a cold, curt text message. They were spending their vacation with my sister Saren's family on a beach in Miami, thousands of miles away. There wasn't a single word of explanation, not a hint of apology. All there was a casual, wishing you a wonderful wedding, as if my long-awaited wedding were nothing more than an insignificant little matter. My hands trembled as I dialed their numbers again and again, but all I heard through the receiver was the mechanical sound of a busy line. My husband Yago was so furious he was shaking all over, while I had already burst into tears, utterly broken. This betrayal, which cut right to the bone, ignited a fire of rage deep within me. I made a silent vow. Never again would I let them trample on my dignity with impunity. I reached out to lawyer Yolo Perry. As for what happened next, all I can say is that they'd never have imagined the price they'd pay for their indifference. Before I continue with the rest of the story, I'd love to hear in the comments when and in which city you watched this video. I'm truly curious to know how far my story has traveled and whose hearts it has touched. Having grown up on the shores of Lake Mendota, it seemed as though I'd spent my entire life living in the shadow of my older sister, Saren. My parents' favoritism was never hidden. They showered Saren with all their tenderness and approval. Saren and her husband, Gareth, live in a spotless home in the suburbs of Madison, with 2 lovely children. Every time they visit, my parents can't stop praising the meticulously prepared family dinner she serves and the impeccably tidy house she keeps. They marvel at how effortlessly she balances work and parenting, as if none of it ever poses the slightest challenge for her. As the youngest daughter in my family, I'm still struggling hard in the marketing industry, juggling my career while carefully nurturing my first child. Yet my parents have never once acknowledged my efforts. In their eyes, I'll always be that unambitious, immature kid. My fiancé, Yago, is someone I met 3 years ago at a tech conference in Milwaukee. He's a software engineer with a calm and steady demeanor and a gentle way of treating others. What's more, he's exceptionally good at cheering me up when I'm feeling down, even during the worst days of my pregnancy. We fell in love at first sight. Late at night, we'd often sit together, sharing heartfelt conversations and opening up about our dreams. I longed to start my own marketing company, while he dreamed of developing an app that could truly make a difference in people's lives. 2 years into our relationship, he proposed to me beneath the starry sky in a local park, and without a second thought, I said yes. We had originally planned a simple, yet deeply meaningful little wedding by the lake. I'd expected my parents to be thrilled for me, but instead, their attention was firmly fixed on Saren, and they showed absolutely no interest in my wedding. Every weekend, Mom Mel would call, her tone so firm it left no room for refusal, urging me to head over to their house near Mendota Lake. No one's around to help at home, she'd always say, using the same tired excuse. Saren's got the kids to take care of. She simply can't spare any time. By then, I was already 4 months pregnant, suffering from excruciating back pain and completely drained of energy. Yet I still had to force myself to go over there, cooking the roast beef stew she loved, scrubbing floors covered in grime, and tidying up the chaotic garage. Dad Bevan would just give me a perfunctory nod of approval once I'd finished all the chores, never once offering to lend a hand himself. In their eyes, these were tasks I was supposed to handle all along. My pregnancy had somehow become nothing more than a petty excuse for making a fuss. When Saren was pregnant with her 2 children, she never once complained or said she was tired. Mel's words pierced my heart like needles. I clenched my teeth tightly, desperately suppressing the anger welling up inside me, determined not to let the conflict erupt completely. Yago watched it all unfold, his heart aching with every passing moment. One Sunday, after returning from my parents' house, I was so exhausted that I could barely stand. He quickly helped me sit down, his eyes filled with deep concern. "Eloan, you're pregnant. You can't keep letting them push you around like this." I nodded in agreement, yet deep down, I still held onto a sliver of hope. If only I'd just be obedient and meet all their demands, maybe someday they'd start showing me a bit more appreciation and kindness, just as they had with Saren. But every time I went to my parents' place, I only ended up feeling even more drained, and my body had long since sent out loud, urgent warnings. During my last prenatal checkup, the doctor had explicitly warned me that prolonged stress and overexertion could put our baby's safety at risk, urging me to slow down and put my own health and my child's safety first. I solemnly promised the doctor that I'd follow their instructions to the letter, yet when Mel kept pressing me, I just couldn't bring myself to say no. One evening, I finally mustered the courage to have a serious talk with Mel. I drove over to their house and sat down at the kitchen table. My voice was laced with weariness as I explained my situation to her. "Mom, I'm pregnant and my body really can't take it anymore." My voice trembled slightly. "I need to get some proper rest." But she didn't even look up. She continued sipping her coffee at her own leisurely pace, her tone as cold as ice. When Saren was pregnant with twins, she still went to work and managed the household just fine. "You're so young. How come you're being such a baby?" Meanwhile, Dad Bevan sat in the living room, flipping through the newspaper, pretending not to hear our conversation and remaining completely silent throughout. As I left my parents' house that night, I felt utterly small and pathetic, like no matter what I did, I'd never measure up to even one of Saren's little fingers. By the time I got home, Yago was already waiting for me at the door. He pulled me into his arms and said, "You don't need to keep proving yourself to them. Your worth has never depended on what they think of you." His words felt like a ray of light, illuminating my darkened mood. Still, I wasn't ready to completely give up on my parents yet. The following weekend, Mel called again, her tone as sharp and impatient as ever. "We're having a family dinner, so could you come over earlier to help with cooking and running errands?" I stared at my phone screen, feeling a storm raging inside me. Finally, I saw right through their true nature. No matter how unwell I was or how tough my situation became, all they ever cared about was using me as their servant, while Saren could always stay aloof, enjoying their undivided favor. I forced myself to suppress my growing resentment and casually replied that I'd do my best to make it over. But deep down, my heart had already turned icy cold. Jago overheard our conversation and shook his head helplessly, yet said firmly, "They're just getting more and more ruthless in taking advantage of you. You can't keep letting them get away with it anymore." I knew he was right, but deep down, I still held onto a sliver of hope, hoping that they'd finally realize how important this wedding was to me, put aside their prejudices, and join me in celebrating this special day. At the time, I had no idea that this hope would ultimately turn into a heart-wrenching disappointment. As my pregnancy progressed, my body grew heavier and heavier, but my parents' demands only intensified, showing absolutely no sign of understanding or consideration. By the 5th month of pregnancy, my ankles were swollen so badly they looked like steamed buns. Every step I took felt like enduring torture. Yet Mel kept calling me every single day, her voice sharp and accusatory. Serene, even with 2 kids, is always ready to drop everything at a moment's notice. She'd never hesitate or make excuses like you do. One morning, her words were laced with disappointment and sarcasm. You simply don't care about this home at all. You don't want to do a single thing more for it. I clutched my phone tightly, feeling an unbearable tightness in my chest. I tried again and again to explain to her just how exhausted I was, how my body could no longer handle such relentless strain, but she merely sighed impatiently, as if all my explanations were nothing but excuses. Dad Bevan, as always, chose to stay out of it, leaving me alone to face Mel's accusations and constant nitpicking. Hearing Serena's name brought up once again in comparison to mine, feeling that eternal sense of inadequacy, never being recognized, forever falling short of her standards, it tore my heart apart. Iago could take no more. One evening, Mel called again, asking me to come over the next day to help them organize the pantry. Iago snatched the phone right out of my hand, speaking with a tone that was firm yet polite. Aunt Mel, Elowen is pregnant and needs plenty of rest. She really can't manage to help you with these tasks anymore. I looked at him, my heart filled with gratitude yet tinged with a touch of nervousness. I knew all too well how Mel could be. She hated nothing more than having someone challenge her decisions. This is our family matter, Iago, she snapped, her voice brimming with anger. You've got no right to come in here and tell us what to do. Iago handed me the phone, his jaw clenched tight, and whispered to me, They've gone too far. We can't let them keep bullying you like this. I nodded, but deep down, a faint glimmer of hope still lingered, hoping that Mel might soften her stance, see how difficult things have been for me, and recognize all the effort I've put in. Meanwhile, Dad Bevan sat in his recliner as usual, staring blankly at the TV, completely oblivious to the argument going on around him, as if none of it had anything to do with him at all. Meanwhile, Iago and I were busy planning our wedding. We'd booked a cozy little restaurant by the shores of Mendota Lake, a place that offered breathtaking views of the lake while comfortably accommodating about 50 guests, just perfect for the intimate atmosphere we were aiming for. For several evenings, I carefully selected the flowers for the wedding, ultimately settling on white roses, symbolizing purity, and lilies, representing blessings. Meanwhile, Iago took charge of the catering, repeatedly communicating with vendors to finalize the menu, which included my absolute favorite, roasted salmon and roasted vegetables. Together, we sent out invitations to our family and friends, including Mel, Bevan, and Saren. Countless times, I'd imagine the scene on the wedding day. They'd be seated in the audience, watching me walk down the red carpet, arm in arm with Iago, their faces glowing with pride and heartfelt joy. Iago and I often worked late into the night, stuffing envelopes and confirming guests' attendance. Though our bodies were exhausted, our hearts grew ever more filled with anticipation. How I longed for this day to be absolutely perfect, a beautiful moment that everyone would cherish forever. Yet Mel's cold demeanor lingered like an unshakable shadow, casting a gloom over our hearts. Once, I made a special call to Mel just to confirm whether they'd be able to attend my wedding. On the other end of the line, she hesitated for a long time before saying in a distant tone, We'll do our best to make it. After a brief pause, she added, Saren's planning to take her family on a trip to Miami, and we might need to head over there to help watch the kids for her. In that instant, I froze right where I stood. My heart felt as if it had been struck by a heavy hammer, plummeting straight into the depths of despair. A trip to Miami? And of all days, it just happens to be my wedding day. I urgently pressed her for more details, but she merely brushed it off with a perfunctory reply. There's been a lot going on at home lately, and we've really been swamped. It was as if my wedding meant nothing to her, just another trivial matter that could be casually dismissed. Dad Bevan, unusually enough, chimed in during the call, but all he said was, We'll see how things shake out when the time comes. Who knows, there might be other stuff coming up too. There wasn't the slightest hint of sincerity in his voice, only perfunctory politeness. I hung up the phone, my hands trembling uncontrollably. I turned to Iago, my voice so faint it was barely audible, like a mosquito's hum. They've chosen Celine again. In their eyes, my wedding doesn't mean a thing. He hurried over, pulled me into a tight embrace, and whispered soothing words, promising that no matter whether they showed up or not, he'd make sure my wedding would be perfect. I wanted to believe him, but deep down, doubts began to creep in like vines. Would they really come? Or had I been fooling myself all along? After all, the wedding was supposed to be the happiest, most unforgettable day of my life. Standing in the bridal suite of that restaurant by Madison Lake, I felt the crisp white wedding dress snugly hugging my 6-month pregnant belly. My fingers nervously traced the lace trim on the dress, my heart filled with both anticipation and trepidation. My friends gathered around me, helping me adjust my veil and touch up my makeup. The room was filled with their cheerful laughter and chatter, but my gaze remained fixed on the doorway, never daring to look away for even a second, as I longed to catch sight of Mel and Bevan's figures. I'd imagined this moment countless times. Mel would take my hand, carefully examine my wedding dress, her eyes glistening with tears as she said, "You've grown up so fast." Bevan would pat me on the shoulder, wearing a rare smile of approval. Yet suddenly, the phone on the table began to vibrate, shattering the warm, cozy atmosphere of the room. A message from Mel popped up on the screen. "We're vacationing in Miami with the Sarin family. Enjoy your wedding." My heart instantly felt as though it had been doused with ice-cold water, sending a chill straight through me from head to toe. Miami, those beaches thousands of miles away, where they were now leisurely enjoying their holiday, while I, their own flesh and blood daughter, was about to step onto the red carpet all by myself. Not a single heartfelt wish, not a single explanatory call, just a cold, casual text message, as if my wedding were nothing more than a joke that had nothing to do with them. I stared intently at the message, rechecking it again and again, unable to believe it was real. My hands trembled as I dialed Mel's number, but all I heard on the other end was the voicemail greeting. I quickly tried calling Bevan next, only to find the same frustrating silence. No one answered. Clinging to what little hope remained, I dialed Celine's number, and once again, the line was met with endless busy signals. All my hopes and dreams shattered in an instant. I slumped onto the velvet chair, tears streaming down my face like beads from a broken necklace, unstoppable and relentless, no matter how hard I tried to wipe them away. My maid of honor, Lori Gareth, a close friend who'd grown up alongside me, noticed something was wrong and hurried over, her voice soft and concerned. "Eloan, what's the matter?" she asked gently. "What's going on?" I choked out, handing her my phone. My throat felt as if something were choking me, and not a single word could escape. After reading the text message, her eyes widened instantly, her face filled with shock and anger. She immediately stepped forward, pulled me into a tight embrace, and began to comfort me over and over again. The cheerful laughter and chatter in the room vanished in an instant. The air seemed to freeze, suffocatingly heavy. Their absence wasn't just a simple missed appointment. It was a brutal blow that struck straight at my heart, leaving me in such excruciating pain that I couldn't even breathe. They hadn't merely missed my wedding. More than that, at the very moment when I needed my family's presence most and longed for their acknowledgement the most, they'd unhesitatingly chosen Celine, abandoning me completely. My grandmother, Enid Tejid, was the only family member who had attended my wedding. She found me collapsed in tears in our suite, reached out with her warm hand, gripped mine tightly, and said, with a voice both firm and tender, "Honey, don't be sad. Their choice was despicable and selfish. It doesn't define your worth at all." Grandma Enid has always been wise and kind. She's been my spiritual pillar from childhood until now. Whenever I felt wronged, she'd always be the first to step in and protect me. She gently patted my back, promising that she'd always stay by my side and be my strongest support. Her words were like a lifeline, sustaining me when I was on the verge of breaking down. I wiped away my tears, tried hard to calm myself, and told myself that I couldn't let my parents' selfishness ruin this day. Yet the sting of being betrayed by the very people I loved most felt as if it had been branded into my heart. It just wouldn't go away. How could my own biological parents be so cruel to me? The wedding ceremony began on time, and I took Yago's arm, walking slowly up the red carpet. His eyes were filled with deep love and tenderness. But when I leaned close to his ear and whispered the contents of that text message to him, I clearly saw his loving gaze instantly give way to burning anger. The soft lighting in the restaurant and the guests' hushed well wishes all seemed to blur together in my eyes. I could only force a smile, struggling to hide the pain deep within my heart. Grandma Enid sat in the front row, her gaze steady yet filled with encouragement. Her unwavering support gave me immense courage. Yet those two empty seats, meant for Mel and Bevan, felt like two gory wounds burning before my eyes, constantly reminding me of the truth. I had been abandoned. During the breaks in the ceremony, I couldn't help but pull out my phone, refreshing the screen over and over again, hoping against hope to receive some word from them. Just one late apology or explanation would do. But the phone screen remained stubbornly blank. After the vows were exchanged, clutching at that last shred of hope, I dialed Mel's and Bevan's numbers once more, but again, I was met with cold voicemail messages. Even Saren's phone went unanswered. Each unanswered call felt like a knife slicing deeper into my already battered heart, as if they'd completely erased me from their lives, as if I'd never existed at all. During the wedding reception, Yago pulled me aside, away from the bustling crowd. His voice was low but seething with anger as he said, "We can't just let this slide. They've gone too far, treating your wedding like a joke and your heart like trash." He clenched his fists tightly, his chest rising and falling violently with rage. His anger mirrored mine exactly. The calm composure he usually displayed had long since given way to an unshakable determination to protect me. My own heart was ablaze with fury, and I could hardly contain the urge to rush straight to Miami and confront them face to face, demanding to know why they'd treated me this way. Yet I also knew full well that even if I did go there, it would accomplish absolutely nothing. They'd only turn the tables on me, pinning all the blame on me, accusing me of being immature and making a big deal out of nothing, leaving me trapped in endless self-reproach and agony. I'll make them pay for what they've done in my own way. I clenched my tears back and spoke with a firm voice. I said. Yago nodded, his eyes filled with trust and support, though I could tell he'd already been ready to stand up for me all along. Grandma Enid stepped closer, her expression resolute as she declared, "Child, you don't need to bend yourself to please those who've hurt you. I'll always be by your side, supporting every decision you make." Her promise felt like a soothing balm, gradually calming my restless heart and reminding me that I wasn't fighting this battle alone. As I looked out at my friends dancing joyfully on the dance floor, listening to the crisp clink of glasses, my heart felt as though it were weighed down by 1,000-pound stone, a heaviness that was almost unbearable. Mel, Bevan, and Seelan's choice couldn't have been clearer. On this day, so meaningful and once in a lifetime for me, they had unhesitatingly turned their backs on me, choosing instead to spend time with their own family. That night, after the wedding had ended, I lay in Yago's arms, my tears silently soaking through his shirt. I'd made up my mind once and for all. I would never again humbly try to please them or desperately seek their approval as I had done before. They'd crossed every single boundary I'd ever set, trampling my sincerity and my hopes beneath their feet. It was time for me to draw a clear line for myself, to completely break free from their hurt and control. A week after the wedding, I could no longer suppress the pain deep within me, and it finally erupted. In the apartment where Yago and I lived, wedding photos hung on the walls. Every time I caught a glimpse of my forced smile in those pictures, I couldn't help but notice the two empty seats that should have been occupied by my parents. I ran my hand over my pregnant belly, staring intently at my phone, but Mel, Bevan, and Seelan remained utterly silent. This utter disregard hurt even more than any argument ever could. Sobbing, I turned to Yago, who was brewing coffee, and confessed, "How could they be so heartless? For Seelan's sake, you'd just abandoned my wedding like that." Yago immediately put down his cup and comforted me, firmly suggesting, "Stop dwelling on them. We should cut ties with them once and for all. Never let them hurt you again." His words warmed my heart, yet I still hesitated. Cutting ties meant giving up completely on the possibility of earning their approval. I just can't help but wonder, why is Seelan always first? What exactly did I do wrong? I asked, my voice choked with emotion. Yago pulled me close and held me tightly. You haven't done anything wrong. The fault lies in their selfishness. You may never get an answer, but you can't keep hurting yourself or our baby because of them anymore. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The painful scenes from my wedding day kept replaying in my mind. I finally dialed my best friend Lori's number and poured out everything. The years of being favored and exploited, the heartbreak of being abandoned at my wedding. Lori hit the nail on the head when she advised me. You've got to learn to set boundaries, stop enabling them. As someone who's about to become a mom, you need to focus on your own little family and stop wasting yourself on people who aren't worth it. Her words rang like a wake-up call, making me realize just how profoundly I'd been asleep. The next day, after Grandma Enid learned what had happened to me, she was furious. She declared she'd take matters into her own hands and even recommended Yolo Perry, a lawyer who specialized in family disputes. Her suggestion gave me renewed hope. I wrote down the lawyer's phone number, and my determination grew stronger than ever. When Yago found out, he wholeheartedly supported me. Go for it. We can't let anyone keep bullying us anymore. That very afternoon, I reached out to lawyer Yolo Perry and explained in detail how I'd been chronically exploited by my birth family and how I'd been abandoned at my wedding. I made it crystal clear that I wanted to protect myself and my baby and break free from their control. The lawyer laid out for me the practical steps I could take to establish legal boundaries and handle the inheritance issues. For the first time, I felt I had a clear path forward, a path to fight back with confidence and reclaim control over my life. After Yago got off work and came home, I told him about consulting a lawyer, and he wholeheartedly agreed. This is the right choice. We've got to teach them a lesson. As we cuddled together planning our next steps, I suddenly realized that my real family was me, Yago, and the baby on the way. As for Mel and the others, they'd already made their choice. By their actions, they'd abandoned me long ago. 2 weeks after the wedding, I drove to my parents' house, forcing myself to suppress my anger. I was determined to get a clear explanation. Why had they rather joined Saren on a vacation to Miami than attend my wedding? When I arrived and knocked on the door, Mel greeted me with a cold, expressionless face, showing absolutely no remorse. Beverly, on the other hand, kept her eyes averted, avoiding my gaze altogether. Taking a deep breath, I resolved that even if it meant tearing things apart, I'd find out the truth. Why didn't you come to my wedding? I asked, trying hard to keep my voice steady. But Mel shot back with a sneer. You're just too selfish. Sarah needs help taking care of 2 kids, and you've got Yago and his friends to keep you company. What's it matter if we're 2 fewer? This is a vacation, not a favor. You could have at least given us a heads up. I couldn't help but snap back. Mel glared at me with utter disdain, calling me dramatic, while Bevan remained silent throughout, offering nothing but perfunctory indifference. That coldness shattered the last shred of illusion I'd held about this family. I turned around, ready to leave, but then my phone pinged with a social media notification. I tapped it open, and Saren's posted photo from her Miami trip stabbed right into my heart. There she was, laughing joyfully under palm trees, flanked by Mel and Bevan. The caption taunted me mercilessly, calling me an overdramatic bride and even encouraging others to pile on with insults. The comment section was flooded with vicious, unfounded attacks. Not only had they skipped my wedding, but they'd also made a public mockery of my pain, openly humiliating me for their own amusement. That betrayal severed the last thread of affection I'd ever felt toward them. I returned home in a daze. As soon as Yago saw my expression, he immediately understood what had happened and gently pulled me into his arms, his heart filled with sympathy. That night, I couldn't fall asleep at all. Mel's coldness and Saren's cruelty kept replaying over and over in my mind. Finally, I made up my mind. I unhesitatingly blocked the phone numbers and social media accounts of all 3 of them. Though this decision weighed heavily on me, it brought me an unprecedented sense of relief. I knew I had to protect my own peace and that of my baby. A month later, Grandma Enid called me and told me to come see her right away. Her tone was firm as she insisted on helping me get justice. She suggested we go together to see lawyer Yolo Perry, and I agreed without hesitation. Yago also fully supported me. The next day, my grandma and I went to the law firm, where she announced on the spot that she wanted to amend the will. The family trust, including the land, savings, and lakeside cottage, would be entirely bequeathed to me, completely excluding Mel and Bevan from any inheritance rights. She bluntly stated that their long-standing favoritism toward me and their heartless behavior at the wedding were simply unforgivable, and that this compensation was entirely deserved. I was both shocked and delighted, deeply grateful for Grandma's unwavering protection. Together with my lawyer, we carefully reviewed the documents and confirmed that every detail was accurate. That same day, the lawyer sent out a notice of the will's amendment to Mel and Bevan. Although I hesitated a bit, Grandma's words suddenly struck home. They sowed the seeds of their own actions. Now they'll have to bear the consequences themselves. A few days later, Mel and Bevan left voice messages filled with furious accusations, calling me ungrateful and manipulating Grandma, yet not uttering a single word of apology. Their messages revealed nothing but their insatiable greed for the inheritance. After listening to them, I calmly deleted the messages. Their reaction only served to confirm once again how absolutely right Grandma's decision had been. They'd never cared about me at all. All they'd ever cared about were those assets. When Lori found out, she threw a small celebration for me, inviting close friends and Grandma herself. At the party, Lori raised her glass and wished me well, hoping I'd finally shake off the pain and take control of my life once more. My grandmother also reminded me to cherish the happy family I had right here, right now. As I looked around at the people who truly cared for me, I finally understood. This was exactly the kind of warmth that a family should have. A month later, Yago and I moved into a spacious new apartment and carefully decorated the nursery, filled with anticipation for our baby's arrival. Grandma Enid often came to visit us, bringing along my favorite treats and offering her company to chase away the shadows of my past. Our little family was brimming with warmth and love. Meanwhile, Mel and Bevan reaped what they'd sown. After news of their will's revision spread, they became notorious in the community for missing their daughter's wedding and for their long-standing favoritism toward one child. Friends and relatives began to distance themselves from them. Mel tried desperately to twist the truth, but no one believed her anymore. Even Bevan's silence only served as damning evidence of his guilt. The two were utterly isolated. Yet, I felt no satisfaction in seeing them suffer. Instead, I experienced a profound sense of relief, a quiet realization that karma had finally taken its course. Just as I was fully immersed in preparing to welcome my baby, Celine sent me a text message apologizing and begging for a chance to explain herself. But the vivid memories of her mocking my appearance on social media and laughing joyfully with her parents in Miami made her belated apology feel utterly hollow and insincere. I simply replied, "I need complete space. Please don't contact me again," and blocked her once more. Finally, I realized, it's simply not worth draining myself out on someone who never truly cared about me. Looking back now, I've finally seen the harsh truth. For so long, I'd been humbly and desperately seeking validation from my birth family, only to receive nothing but hurt in return. This experience has taught me to set boundaries and prioritize protecting myself and those who genuinely love me. Yago, Grandma, and Lori, they're my real family. This deeply painful journey has also brought me a profound awakening. You can never force someone who doesn't want to love you to give you their heart. Rather than lingering in a toxic relationship, wearing yourself down and depleting your energy, it's far better to make a decisive turn. Build your own warm circle of people who will empower you, treat you with sincerity, and truly cherish you. Today, I've shed my former humility and timidity. I've become stronger, more confident, and fully prepared to become a mother. With my own experiences, I'll teach my child this. Learn to cherish your own worth. Never let anyone make you doubt yourself. Be brave enough to walk away from relationships that drain you or hurt you. And above all, always believe that true love is about acceptance and support, not exploitation or belittlement. If you're watching this story right now, I hope it can offer you even just a small spark of inspiration. Don't let anyone make you feel insignificant. Boldly set your boundaries, stand firm in defending them, and then open your heart to those who recognize your value and treat you with genuine care. I'm deeply grateful for every step of this journey, even though it was filled with pain and tears. It's precisely these experiences that have helped me break free from my constraints and become the stronger version of myself. Thank you for listening, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section. I'm really curious. How do you handle tricky family issues? Or how do you set boundaries for yourself?